Iota. Let's pull it up from CoinMarketCap first and bring it to you guys. All right. Here it is. Iota. I don't have a big bag of Iota, but I do recognize, hey, you know what? I'm glad I bought the bottom, you know? So let's see how it's doing on the 7-day chart. Pull up Iota. Ranked number 64. Kind of leveled off a little bit, right? But it's at 21% increase on the week. You know, we saw it do a lot more better than where it's leveled off right now. But the bottom line is this, right? I saw it go from what I put into about roughly, or what did I say roughly? I came at roughly 15 cents, you know, give or take. And I saw it go up to like 32 cents. And I thought, wow, that's like a nice 2x. Who's complaining about that? But this has also been a long-term hold for me as well. But it was worth pointing out because it's been a while since Iota moved, right? And of course, it's ranked 64th. It's in the top 100. Slightly below a $1 billion market cap, and just getting more into it. Basically speaking, yeah. See, I don't really have a whole heck of a lot, but still was glad to see my little investment, you know, double. You know, I think I have like a little over 1,000 Iota or something like that. Nothing too significant, but you know, hey, all about how long you hold it, right? All right, so basically, check this out for a second. I want you guys to see this. So 4 years ago, on March 12, 2020, it was all the way down to 0.07962. All-time highs was, of course, December 19, 2017, all the way up to $5.69. And some people do ask about the supply about this, so I just thought I'd throw this out there. Currently speaking, your max supply is 369, so 4.6 billion Iota, okay? And the current circulating supply, you have about roughly 66% of these. So some people say, well, it's not up to 80%. It might be an uphill chase. I don't think so, because for one, we're not in a bear market anymore. You know, things are looking extremely bullish. So why would you want to wait longer, right? Not financial advice. So that's what's going on as far as that goes. Recently, like you see here, had this nice little run, okay? Yeah, up to about roughly, actually higher than 32 cents, about 36 cents. So very cool to see this stuff. All right, now let's take you over to actually the Iota page on Twitter. And basically, this part is really cool. So we have shared the whole thing about what's going on with, you know, the United Arab Emirates. Of course, they're not being so dependent on the dollar. People feel as though that's doom and gloom. But now you even have more info from the Iota side of things. I thought I would at least, you know, point this out as far as this outline, because I mean, if anything, I don't think I've ever done a particular piece on Iota. We talk about it a lot, maybe not as enough as we should. Used to get tagged a lot on the live shows, but finally, here you go, some Iota. So 14 hours ago, straight from Iota, you've heard about our new Iota ecosystem DLT foundation in Abu Dhabi to supercharge Iota, plus ShimmerNet in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. It says we'll fund projects, ignite global development, and maximize tech utility. This is, again, my old classic saying of utility in motion. Exciting times ahead. This excites me. I think to myself, well, maybe Iota is one that I should have loaded up even more on. I don't know. I'm into so many different things, but Iota was part of the ISO 222 list of ones I didn't have. I said to myself, this is bottom. It was, and I'm ecstatic that I 2x basically. So they have this thing here about growing Iota in the Middle East, Africa, Asia, beyond. And when I got more into it, I decided to myself, well, why this particular collaboration? They have info about this, okay? So why the UAE, and why is this whole thing of global expansions and so on? They wrote about it, listen to what it says, and it says basically they're expanding, of course, their footprint. And I'm going to blow this up a little bit for you guys. I know that not all of you guys are in the Iota, and it's okay. But, you know, you got to appreciate some of what's mentioned. Okay, the growth. Iota doesn't make news all the time, but they're one of those ones that build a lot in the background. It says while crypto is a global and remote first industry, keep in mind I've gone down to this key part. This is not me reading the whole website verbatim. But yes, while it's a global remote first industry, it's important to collaborate with regulators and have a presence on the ground. It's not only to secure a sound legal footing, but also because IOTA's targeted use cases span global trade, supply chains, the circular economy, and sustainability, public goods, infrastructure, tokenization of real world assets. We're always talking about these things. Quant, you name it. Will Fix talks about it with lofty marketplace and so on. There's other ones that we cover here. Relio, right? So we talk a lot about different real estate related projects and so on. There's also Propy. I've always meant to do a proper deep dive on that. I think that one's also solid. But real world applications, and specifically IOTA, the IOTA ecosystem, DLT Foundation, can supercharge, I love the terminology here, our efforts to empower new businesses and use cases in the United Arab Emirates. All right, awesome. Because last I checked, when it comes to the UAE, especially when it comes to like Dubai and so on, this is one of the most crypto-friendly areas of the world. Singapore as well, South Korea. So when you hear things like supercharge these areas already have mass adoption. This is a big win, right? It's not a nothing burger. And like I said, Middle East, around the globe, but UAE specifically is a rapidly growing market focused on innovation tech. Very true. One of the largest Web3 hubs in the world and the ideal gateway for the Middle East and Southeast Asia. Has close relations across the Middle East, North Africa, India, China, beyond. The UAE recently made visionary investments in blockchain, smart cities. I like that because, as we know, IOTA, talk about Internet of Things, we talk about JASMY a lot, but IOTA is right up there as well. The UAE, I'm sorry, I read that part again. Positioning itself as a leader, as in the UAE, in sustainable development, crypto and Web3. According to Fortune magazine, Abu Dhabi and Asia show crypto is charging ahead. Well, yeah, but what about the IOTA plug, right? So they talk about all these challenges. We know about some of these things, but it states the work being done in the UAE to remove regulatory bottlenecks is key to ensuring continuous progress of their emerging ecosystem and a major opportunity to speed up the adoption and growth of IOTA and its ecosystem applications. So when we talk about Internet of Things, especially again with JASMY and stuff like that, what if you already have a plug in to connect with IOTA, and especially in a different region of the world, not Japan, but in an area hotspot where they're really crypto friendly, hence the UAE, right? This is cool, and I want to bring it to you guys, and that's what I'm doing. So it talks about other ecosystems that have set up their own companies, other in regards to similar conditions, and how they were faced with the consequences of, I guess you could say, having things up to subpar levels. But it says being part of the ADGM crypto ecosystem from the start and enabling ecosystems to our projects to set up local operations, this will enable IOTA and their partners to set up, or at least get to set up the phase just right. And bottom line is this: there's a lot of money that's involved. Look at this for a second. Talks about this long-term value growth and the ecosystem development. So their DLT foundation for IOTA will be seeded with 552 million IOTAs, equivalent to $200 million. That's nothing to bat an eye at, constituting 12% of the total supply. That will be released over, of course, 4 years. Getting into this part, they give you some examples. They're going to mainly focus on these areas: education, events, which, worth pointing out. States that's going to help developers expand their skills before shifting to use cases built on top of IOTA, inspiring budding entrepreneurs, enterprises, you name it. End goal, and I like how this is mentioned plain as day, is to grow the number of pilot projects, proofs of concepts, and businesses incubated on top of the Iota network. They have more development and business partnerships. Again, everything that a lot of us have been following for a while when it comes to Iota, of like building in the background, it just kind of validates that. Builder support and funding, but this part about regulatory advice and support, I mean, if we're going to go to this whole new shift of, you know, do we have the right regulatory framework to get clarity? Well, it seems like Iota is meeting that criteria. Bridging relationships, like I said, between UAE and even the European Union institutions to develop operable global regulatory framework for DLT space. So there's a lot of information that's posted here. And the last part I want to get into, because I don't want to get to the very bottom of the page. They're also part of this whole notion of tokenization of real world assets, Iota. I think that's definitely worth pointing out. You know, earlier I think we pointed that out in regards to Casper, but the Iota ecosystem, DLT Foundation, will help incorporate real world assets in the UAE, unlocking new opportunities, bridging TradeFi with DeFi, obviously with Iota, and bringing new assets into the Iota network. Iota's commitment to real-world tokenization as a means of allowing widespread participation in emerging digital economies stands to gain significantly from regulatory backing and transparency. Iota already occupies a distinctive position to realize these opportunities at scale, forging collaborations and partnerships at governmental and regulatory levels. More is listed above. There's also a lot more listed on the bottom. I don't want to get into all that. But what I do want to basically share with you is this. It is a video. I promise I won't go away too long. I mean, I can't really promise, but you know, I'll be here. It's not super long. This one is probably about 6 minutes. I fast forwarded to this. And that is for a lot of this, you know, you newcomers don't know about Iota. Basically, like I said, what is Iota? How does it work? Some of you guys know about this, but I wanted to get into the key features of Iota that you might not even been aware of. So let's play this. It's about 6 minutes. Hear about this whole thing. Tangle Tech. What is Tangle Tech? What are the key features? All right, let's go ahead and play this.
Now let's look at some of the key features which make Iota stand up in comparison to most of the other blockchain implementations that are out there today in the market. One of the most key factors which makes Iota quite easy and effective in the platform of Internet of Things is the capability of its scalability. Now, in comparison, yes, Iota can have a lot more cryptocurrencies generated. Yes, it can manage a lot more number of transactions as well. Now, if you are comparing one of the most essential factor for any cryptocurrency or any blockchain implementation, I would go with transactions per second. That is how much amount of information can be processed per second. Now, if you take the Bitcoin implementation, basically it can handle about 3 to 5 transactions. And if you look at Ethereum, that's close to 15 transactions per second. Iota, on the other hand, can handle close to 1,000 transactions. And again, it can keep growing as well. Now, this is just a recent stress-based information that I'm telling you. The highest would be Ripple with about 1,200 transactions per second. But again, the ideology with respect to Ripple, again, is quite similar with Bitcoin, although it can handle a lot more transactions. But there's always the issue of a single information source being created here as well. Now we'll be addressing this while we go forward and how Iota tackles this as well. So in terms of scalability, Iota offers a lot more when you compare to most existing implementations of blockchain that are out there. Coming to the next point, modularity. Now the Iota protocol in itself, if we talk about it, it's quite lightweight and easy. But with the use of modularity, what they've done is that they've actually not compromised on the parallel functioning capabilities. What I basically am trying to imply that each component associated with the Iota platform can in itself work without compromising on the overall functionality as well as the speed of the system as well. Now, one key essential factor that makes Iota stand up in comparison to the others is microtransaction. Now, this in turn actually reduces the need for miners and thereby completely eliminating the need for transaction fees in itself. One of the biggest challenges for Bitcoin blockchain or most of the blockchain implementations that deal with cryptocurrency today is the transaction fees that are associated. Earlier, the idea of blockchain was to introduce a system that did not bring the transaction fees, but today the ideology has changed a lot. Today, even with Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Ripple, most of these include a certain amount of transaction fees that are associated with any kind of transactions that you perform. On the Iota platform, the transactions that you will be performing will be independent of transaction fees as they are microtransactions as such. Finally, let's talk about the quantum systems. Now, one of the biggest challenges most blockchain systems that are out there today face is a challenge in future that will happen is that if we use a quantum computer which has sufficiently high computing powers, then we can actually provide false transactions into the main block itself. This in turn can actually cripple the entire system, providing a chance of compromise in the security itself. Now, let's say I provide 50,000 false transactions into the Bitcoin blockchain system itself, then it becomes highly impossible for us to remove from this. Once a block of false transactions is added to the blockchain, then it becomes unremovable because of its immutable feature. And if I create newer chains based on this false transaction blocks, then it becomes harder and harder as well. So these challenges can actually be overcome in IOTA because it uses triple hash function known as curl to ensure that it's not crackable even by a quantum computer as well. Now, let's actually try to understand how IOTA works and how it's different from any of the other blockchain implementation. Now, in IOTA, there are no blocks.
All right, went slightly over there. It just goes to the next section, but I wanted you guys to see the key features of this. I'm gonna give you a little conclusion here before we wrap things up because kind of need to. So you guys know, obviously, I talk about JASMY. Probably talk your ear off more than the next guy when it comes to JASMY. I'm a big proponent of the Internet of Things, and let's face it, IOTA is part of the Internet of Things. But more specifically, it's also part of ISO 222, and it's always been one of those ones that just doesn't get enough talk about. Let's just be honest about that. So here's the bottom line. What is so significant when it comes to IOTA and, of course, the Internet of Things? Great question. I'd be asking that all day. And in conclusion, let's just wrap it up and let's get into it. So, I saw Cool Cat Cryptos here. He always talks about scalability, right? So yes, IOTA, scalability. Unlike traditional blockchains, listen to this for a second. IOTA uses a directed acyclic graph. I'm not probably pronouncing that right. Referred to as DAG. Now I'm not talking about constellation DAG. Don't get it twisted. But it's called Tangle. We talked about it briefly in the video. I think the gentleman was explaining IOTA. I was talking about that. But Tangle specifically allows for efficient transaction processing without fees. I've heard about this a long time ago in the past. There's no fees on IOTA. Like, huh? Like you gotta be kidding me, right? But you gotta keep in mind, this is crucial, of course, for the Internet of Things, IoT, where millions of devices may need to communicate and, of course, transact with minimal overhead. Very true. The Tangle network itself, or technology, I should say, scales well as, of course, while the network grows. Very cool. Making it suitable for large-scale IoT applications. Like I always stated before, you don't want a moment where we finally get to the path of mass adoption and, this ends up being worth a lot. And then it's like, yeah, but we didn't prepare for the oh crap moments of, network congestion and high traffic. A lot of people using these devices all at once, right? Things need to be fast and efficient, bottom line. Back to this whole thing about feeless transactions. Were you aware of this? Hear me out. IOTA, like we mentioned, has transactions that are feeless. I know, I still can't believe it myself, but apparently it's a thing. Meaning that there are no fees associated with sending or receiving tokens. Interesting. This is a significant advantage, of course, for low-value IoT transactions. Okay, fair enough. Where, of course, small fees could be prohibitive. Now, there's fee-free transactions that enable microtransactions, but this is going to allow the exchange, of course, of data and value between devices in a cost-effective manner. So that's interesting too. They do have a thing in regards to IOTA that is referred to as data integrity. In JASMY we have, for instance, we call it. Sometimes I draw a blank. I talk about this stuff so long, it drives me crazy. But yes, we talk about data democratization, right? Obviously, that stands out when it comes to JASMY with IoT. But when it comes to Iota specifically, they have their own amount of efficiency. And Iota requires minimal resources to operate. That's the bottom line. With that said, back to the whole thing of not having to worry about much of that overhead. Iota makes things suitable for resource-constrained IoT devices. And there is some ones out there, many of them, right, when it comes to IoT, that do have those constraints. This is crucial, of course, for battery-powered devices and those with limited processing power. In my opinion, it's a game changer. You don't want to have an example of a particular blockchain project that's tied into IoT, and you have an issue where you're not generating enough power because it's just using too much. So this is very, very cost effective, and if anything, uses darn little energy and resources. Keep in mind, by minimizing these resource requirements, Iota itself can enable a wider range of devices to participate, of course, in the IoT ecosystem. By having a greater ecosystem is a big win, obviously, to thrive for Iota. But in closing, I want you to take this away in regards to some of the additional benefits. So there's 3 additional benefits that come from all this. I know I always say interoperability with Quant, but this is Iota that we're talking about. But there is interoperability. So Iota is designed to interoperate with other blockchains and DLT, allowing for seamless integration with, of course, the existing infrastructures. That's awesome. You don't want to ever have to tell other particular projects, hey, you need to jump through all these hoops for you to work with us. No, you need to just be interoperable. What about open source? Yeah, Iota actually is an open source project, as to say, and it does encourage community development and, of course, innovation. What about security? Because at the end of the day, if you don't have true security, what's the point of having things having utility without the security, as old Crypto Smith would say? I know he's probably not watching tonight, but he's mentioned that. Well, Iota uses strong cryptography to secure its network and, of course, protect user data. So again, it's funny how we talk about Internet of Things devices and so on, but one of the key things that's always existed, whether it's Iota, JASMY, even Ocean Protocol, some of these other ones, Pillar, and that is this, all connected to IoT, and IoT needs to be very, very secure, not just fast, but secure. All right, now let me give you some examples real quick in regards to Iota's use in the Internet of Things. Now, we share some examples from that video. I'll put more in like layman's terms before we wrap this up. Iota, for instance, when it comes to supply chain management, can in fact track the movement of goods and ensure their authenticity. Say what you want. We always put so much emphasis on XDC, and rightfully so. XDC is also ISO 222. But when you talk about Iota and we talk about Internet of Things devices and so on, wouldn't it make sense to use some of these devices to track some of the goods and ensure just that authenticity? That's game changer. What about being able to predict like the maintenance of certain things? Hear me out on this. Monitor sensor data, predict equipment failure, schedule maintenance accordingly. Have you ever seen that movie like Minority Report? Predict things before it happens. Not talking about, people committing homicide, but literally, hey, predict equipment failure and schedule maintenance accordingly. At the end of the day, people don't want to wait for things to fail. That's when you get more of that higher cost. If you have some kind of utility with what Iota brings to the table, that saves companies, people like you, me, and so on, a tremendous amount of money. That in itself creates that much more supply and demand. All right. You guys know when it comes to JASMY, I talk a lot about smart cities and so on. When it comes to Iota, how about smart grids? Manage energy consumption and optimize grid performance. Remember I was talking about DC microgrids with Tadashi Morita? Well, yeah, being able to have Iota manage these smart grids, that's another game changer. All right. Also, JASMY, we talked about the decentralization of data marketplaces. Iota also does need to get that mention. How so? Well, with Iota, they're going to enable a way to be able to secure and also create a reliable exchange of data between, of course, devices. And last but not least, we have to talk about micropayments. Iota enables microtransactions for low value services, of course, in the IoT ecosystem. And that's the bottom line. They stand out already as a blue chip, ranked currently 64th. They are part of the ISO 222 mix that we always talk about. And I don't know, maybe this is one that bites me in the butt later on because I didn't buy a bigger bag of it. I don't know. Whatever the case be, I am more than ecstatic about my 2X. And I got into this, I believe, let me double check this real quick. I think it was only a few months ago when it comes to Iota. Yeah, let me just see real quick. Iota. Such a crazy project, but you know what? So cool. Yeah, I came into this last June 10th, 2023, bought a bag at the 15-cent mark, roughly. And yeah, we'll have to see where this goes. As the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. Research trumps FUD 110%, but at the same time, know how long you're willing to hold an asset. If it's a long-term hold, then treat it as so, you know? But we're definitely seeing some things when it comes to Iota. All right, that concludes the Iota coverage. I'm going to just read whatever last bit of comments we have before we wrap up the show. All right. We have just a few particular comments. William Brewer. I think I read this before. You big JASMY investor. Yeah, I did read this. All right. Wilder Jackson, Earn is a legit project with fully docked Chicago-based team. First mover. He holds JASMY too. Awesome. Scope Long. Devs from Earn are building an ecosystem. Earn is one of the tokens that is hyper deflationary and rewards the holders. Thank you from the Earn community. CMC listing soon. Okay, cool. Let us know about that CMC listing. Cool Cat Crypto is in the house, or maybe was then and isn't now. I don't know. Good to have Cool Cat here. Cool Cat, you should tune in on yesterday's show. We talked a lot about BSV yesterday. All right. And let's see. Triple C, did you see last night's show? He's probably gone. There's some BSV stuff. He is gone. He probably just came in and then left. That's okay. All right, guys. You take it easy. Right back at you, Mr. John Francis. And again, I apologize about the whole thing, but stuff like that's going to happen. It doesn't happen all the time. And what is tomorrow? Thursday? We will see you guys back tomorrow on Thursday, straight from the Rice Crop Consortium. Let's go. Right? Right. So before we go, actually, I want to state this. Do you think we're going to get to 2 trillion overall market cap for, the overall crypto market by January? All right. No, you didn't see it. I'll check it out. No worries. It's going to get chopped up anyway. So if you want to just see the chopped up version, that'd be cool. Leave a comment when you do so. It does help the algorithm. Thank you, Maximus Crypto. Good night, brother. Holla, y'all. Yeah, take it easy, man. Yeah, I know, but I don't know. Just trying to be polite. All right, guys. I do appreciate you guys. Thank you for understanding my situation. And if you guys got some dads that are alive and well, give them a hug. And if you have a good relationship, you never know. My dad's up there in age. I'm so thankful that he's still around. I value the time. Let's go, JASMY. Let's go, Stellar. Have a great night. Peace out.